Good morning and welcome back. My name is Johan Hanekom, and I'm passionate about sustainability and innovation. I've had the privilege of investing the last 20 years of my career in learning about how sustainability shapes the way we live as a society and the innovation that's required in order to create not just a surviving society, but very much a thriving society. I've worked in startups. I had my own startup that I scaled and sold to a private equity firm. And I fell in love with the idea of how startups can influence and change the world and the new ideas that they can bring to everyday consumers. And then I made the brave pivot into the corporate world to better understand what happens to these amazing startups when they're acquired by large corporates and the momentum slows down a bit. What causes that, and what can we do to create more entrepreneurs amongst our employees? I'm the principal for sustainability and innovation for Amazon Web Services, and I have the privilege of working with C-level executives and lines of business leaders like yourself to better understand your net zero strategy through technology and innovation. In terms of my background, South African by birth, as you can hear, and I'm very privileged to live in London, a very cosmopolitan city where we get to interact with people from different places with different ideas and unique insights. In today's presentation, we'll be covering off three main topics. And for me, success today would be to work with you on thinking very big around sustainability, really owning the outcomes in your business from a profitability point of view as well, but also from a sustainability point of view. Two very complex topics to understand. Secondly, we'll be looking at how to start small. And this is the important thing to realize, is that we need to start with who we are and with what we have to affect change in the world, right? All of us. Every single person in this room has a responsibility and an accountability as citizens of the planet to make a positive difference in how they conduct themselves and how they inspire others to do the same, whether in commerce or in your personal life. And then thirdly, we'll be looking at moving really fast. Amazon is all about speed. And given the challenges we face globally, this morning there was an article in the Financial Times that talks about the Rio Negro in the Amazon basin that's running dry. So it is very real. It's the lowest it's been in 120 years. Climate impact is real, right? If you look at what's been happening in New York a few months ago, Hawaii before that, Canada, you can rattle down this list. It is very much starting to affect us in our immediate environments, and urgency has never been more pressing. But there is hope, right? Because we're having this conversation today, and we're in a room full of doers. Perhaps to take a pause, and just from the corporate point of view, so Amazon strives to be Earth's most customer-centric company, right? Our mission is to be customer-centric. Internally, we talk about being customer-obsessed. It's not just something we write on a plaque and forget about it. It is a constant reminder in every meeting, in every conversation, in every email. We think about the empty chair in the room. So proverbially speaking, if we were at a table, we'd have an empty chair to force us to remind ourselves of why we're in that room. It's not about who's right. It's not about who's got the biggest ego or who speaks the loudest or is the most eloquent. It is about who is most customer-obsessed. Which idea is going to delight the customer the most, and that is the idea that we have to keep pushing. In the context of today, our customer is the planet. And so what can we do for our planet to ensure that we are obsessed with ensuring the longevity of our environment? We have a program in our team called the Future Fit program. It is about educating both business leaders as well as ensuring that the businesses themselves are future fit. And a future fit state is both one in which you are profitable as well as sustainable. I've worked with the whole C-suite, and the challenge you face is that these priorities can often feel conflicting, especially in the near term, because if you see sustainability as a cost center on your income statement, as something that you have to do, versus something that you want to do or should be doing from a market differentiation point of view, it becomes a very tough argument to win in the boardroom. However, ultimately, in order to build profitable businesses, not just in the long term, but in the medium and near term, one has to embrace and embed sustainability into your strategy. It is no longer a box-ticking, optional extra that one can do. It needs to be bolted into the fundamentals of your business. And as a leader, you need to understand the topic. I speak with a lot of C-level executives where there is a real concern around what is sustainability for my business? How, beyond recycling, beyond reducing waste, beyond repurposing goods and services, what can I do to truly build a long-lasting, sustainable business that attracts the right talent, retains the right talent, appeals to my customers, appeals to my investors? It's a lot of different priorities to shuffle. And so part of what our team does is to talk about scope 1, 2, and 3, but also to take it back to the boardroom to say, how do we make this an economic imperative? Where are some of the economic wins that we can derive from sustainability to bring every stakeholder on that journey with us? Amazon is a very large organization, and therefore we have a lot of responsibilities towards our stakeholders, our customers, our supply chain, and the planet. Just for a moment of reflection, last year we delivered 10 billion parcels worldwide. That takes a tremendous amount of coordination, a tremendous amount of organization. Every delivery matters. Those are 10 billion promises that we had to keep for our customers. Because if one customer is upset, it's as good as all of our customers being upset. And that is what it means to be truly customer obsessed. Every single delivery matters, every single purchase, every single interaction with the brand. If we then cascade that down into our employee base, so we have 1.5 million Amazonians globally who live and breathe our culture. And I'll come to our culture in a moment. Tomorrow, if you're around, I'll be speaking about our culture of innovation. It's a profound methodology that we have. It works for us. We hope that it'll work for you. We run hundreds of workshops every year where we share our culture of innovation. And we have some incredible success stories we can share with you. So in terms of our DNA, and please hold me and every Amazonian you meet accountable to this. This is our public statement. We have 16 leadership principles that we hire against, we develop against, and that we also build a business around. It truly starts with the fundamentals of understanding why we're doing what we're doing. So the mission is to be customer-centric. But how do we do that? How do you harmonize 1.5 million people worldwide to live and breathe it as if they're the CEO of Amazon? When I'm standing up here, the level of ownership that I take in what I say and do is as if I'm the CEO. And that cascades down to the delivery driver that goes the extra mile to ensure that a parcel is delivered to his or her customer. Right? It needs to be that consistent throughout the business, because in the absence of which, it is that final delivery chain that breaks down, where it doesn't matter how impressive your C-suite is, or your VP suite, or your directors. If the people that are interacting with your customer at the coalface are not as obsessed about the business and its ethos and mission as the C-suite are, there will be a disconnect. And so these leadership principles evolve over time. We started with 5 of them 2 years ago when Jeff stepped down as CEO to become chairman and Andy took over. We added success and scale brings broad responsibility, which is our commitment to the planet and its people, as well as striving to be Earth's best employer, which is a reflection on our responsibility that we have towards our employees, to make it a place where they want to come to work, where they can thrive and be their authentic selves. Some of these leadership principles also conflict by design. So I mentioned think big earlier as one of the key outcomes of today, but you can't be thinking big indefinitely because then nothing gets done. So bias for action is that conflicting leadership principle that creates a healthy tension. And so if 2 of us are in a room, one wants to think big, the other wants to showcase bias for action, we have another leadership principle called have backbone, disagree, and commit, which is arguably the hardest one because you need to respectfully, the subtext to have backbone, disagree, and commit is that leadership have an obligation to respectfully disagree, right? It's not, I don't feel like doing it today, therefore I'm not going to be conflicting. It's about respectfully disagreeing, right? And in order to respectfully disagree, you need to be able to see the other person's point of view and then remind yourself of it's not who is right, but what is right for the customer. A very, very important distinction to make. And so, as we reflect on the times that we live in, and I've been presenting on sustainability for 20 years, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity is the name of the game. Sadly, we live in unprecedented times where we see volatility not just in the environment, but also in commerce, inflation, economic uncertainty, wars across the globe, lots and lots of different reasons to say that sustainability should be pushed down the list of priorities because we have more urgent matters to address. The burden of responsibility we have as leaders is to balance urgency with importance. And that comes from having the discretion and the knowledge to say, we need to do the hard things when no one else is willing to do it, so we can reap the benefits of those decisions much later on. Amazon is about a long-term play. When we look to do business, invest in companies, new go-to-market strategies, we do not chase the quarterly results. We think long-term, 10 years, 15, 20 years into the future. Yes, quarterly results matter, but the stock market is a weighing machine, right? In the near term, it's a voting machine, ebb and flow, but in the long term, it is about that sustained value investing model. And the same holds true for the planet, the same holds true for the business models that we're creating. The most important shift here is to realize that we need to build in sustainability as a strategy versus having it as a bolt-on box-ticking exercise. One of the reasons I left private equity was because of this near-term thinking, 3 to 5 year deal cycles to have a return on investment. Sustainability isn't a 3 to 5 year play. Yes, you need to have a 3 to 5 year plan, but you should also be able to answer the question, what is your plan for the next 10 years, 20 years? In 50 years' time, where do you see your business evolving? Do you pivot out of your core business model into a new adjacent market? Because that could be the reality you face, given what's happening in the world. And last but not least, if we cascade down this list, we are a cloud provider. I'm representing Amazon Web Services today. When we speak to our customers, it is not just about the cost and carbon benefits from migrating to the cloud, from an immediate saving. It is about looking at if sustainability is about measuring, monitoring, and managing your carbon emissions down to a net zero future, you need to be able, as a business, to credibly establish a baseline. Like revenue, a CFO does not go in front of the board or investors and guesstimates what the revenue is. It's a fairly granular exercise, and the same holds true for sustainability. Now, the courage that you need to have is to establish a baseline, even if it's not a nice picture to look at, and ask yourself, at least we have a baseline, what can we do to reduce these carbon emissions? What is our game plan? What is our plan of attack? How do we bring stakeholders on the journey with us? And it's not just you, it's also your supply chain, especially from a Scope 3 point of view. That's arguably the hardest one to abate. Scope 1 and 2 is fairly easy to manage, but Scope 3 can be very, very complex. When we look at our own commitments as an organization, these are the top 4 level commitments that we have. So we have the climate pledge, where Amazon is committed to be net zero by 2040, which is 10 years ahead of the Paris Agreement. A fairly ambitious target, given the size of the organization and the complexities around our Scope 3. We also have our water positive goal, where AWS will be returning more water to surrounding communities than it uses in its operations by 2030. And then we also have our commitment towards 100% renewable energy by 2025. So it's a public commitment to be there by 2030, but we're on a glide path to be there by 2025. And we're also the largest procurer of renewable energy in the world. So what? Impressive stats. How does that help me in my business? Well, learning from Amazon. We are on a very, very complex, fraught with challenges path to decarbonize our business. We have to continue growing as a business, and we have to decarbonize our operations. Every consumer wants to have a delivery quicker than it had it the previous year. Right, so we started off with 6-day delivery, then 2-day, then next day, then same day, then 2-hour. Our fastest delivery now is 22 minutes from when you place the order. There's an urgency to get things quicker. How do we continue offering that service whilst also being able to decarbonize our operations? The good news is last year, we were able to increase our net for net sales by 9%, and our absolute carbon emissions went down by 0.4%. The reason why that's important is that it's a trajectory in the right direction. We're credibly moving towards net zero. It's still a long path that we have to go on, but we're moving in the right direction. And we're here today to share with you any insights that we can. Think of us as an organization where you can glean into how we do things, and we want to share those experiences with you. Whether it's supply chain and logistics, product management, tomorrow our culture of innovation, machine learning, artificial intelligence, generative AI. There are so many topics that we have had to embrace in order to go on this decarbonization journey. We've made lots of mistakes. We've had to learn the hard way. And we will make many more mistakes in the future, but we're willing to learn from them because we have a fail-fast culture. And that's something that's very important in your own organization as well, is to have that confidence to make mistakes, to learn from them, share the learnings, and then let the whole organization benefit from that. Be that person that is willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time in order to drive value in the business. We have a future fit framework that we present to our customers as a self-assessment tool. It enables you as a leader, and this is where we need to earn your trust so that we can have this frank conversation to say, where are you on your sustainability journey? So are you in a position where you're looking at very basic level 1 activities? Level 1 is migration to the cloud. Level 1 is optimization of your workloads in the cloud. Very, very entry-level discussions. Important, but still entry-level in the bigger scheme of things. According to the IDC, 4% of companies globally are market-making visionaries in the space of sustainability. The irony is that 90% of the C-suite that I speak to consider themselves in the 4%. So theoretically, that's impossible. Someone's going to be the laggard. Someone's going to be the early adopter. Everyone likes to think of themselves as the visionary, but this is where humility needs to set in and truly look at yourself against your peers and ask, where are we doing better or worse? And more importantly, what needs to be done to be a market maker, to be a visionary, to be that pace setter? And that's where we cascade through this list. So level 2 is innovation and optimization. Level 3 is ideation, along with innovation, but also looking at co-collaborating with you. And then level 4 is transformation. And this is where industries are looking to shift potentially out of their current core business into an adjacent market, because to decarbonize is so complex in that industry, they need to find a new revenue stream for their business or face the challenges of going out of business. It's also the reality of some of these challenges in sustainability. How agile is your business model? And that's where, if you remember that VUCA analogy, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, as leaders, we need to take that volatility and set a very clear vision. Not an easy thing to do. You need to see beyond the near-term chaos and look at the long-term opportunities in the market. Uncertainty, get knowledgeable on the topic of sustainability, develop an understanding through your network like we are today about what good looks like, and start implementing some of those strategies into your business. And if we look at complexity, it's important to get clarity on what needs to be done next. Bold, decisive action. Again, velocity of decision-making, that willingness to take a step in any direction so that we can at least start charting a path. Jeff Bezos said that you should be firm on the vision and flexible on the details. And I think it's very clear for sustainability as well. Be very clear on what your vision is and flexible on how you're going to get there. And then last but not least is ambiguity. And this is where the opportunity on the table is to build organizations that are agile. Now, agility has been a topic for the last 40 years in business schools, and we still seem to struggle with it. So clearly something is fundamentally wrong. The challenge you face is that culture will always eat strategy for breakfast. Do not think for a single second hiring subject matter experts to tell you what you need to do with your business is the answer. It's part of the solution, but the cultural shift needs to happen in your own organization as well. You, as a leader, need to instill that cultural shift. There's an amazing story around this level 1 to 4 experience, Kodak. Some of you may be familiar with the brand. Kodak used to be a very innovative company. They were an early adopter of film when photography was still a mechanical process, as well as black and white, and then color eventually, which were quite expensive innovations to invest in, but Eastman saw the benefit of being an early adopter and setting the pace. Somewhere in their journey, they lost their footing, because in 1975, they invented the digital camera as a pet project. So the digital camera was invented by Kodak. The hired-an engineer called Steve Sisson, a graduate, told him, do something unique. We've got endless budget. There's no real outcome that we're looking for. If you come up with something novel, we'll reevaluate it and potentially we'll invest in it. Similar to what Amazon would do. Amazon encouraged experimentation. Lots of teams, 2-pizza teams, 8 to 10 people coming up with crazy ideas, some great, some not so great. And he came up with the digital camera, presented it to the board, and the board said, where does the film go? And there is no film in a digital camera. And so the idea was shut down because it would cannibalize their core business. That's not visionary leadership. That's very, very small-mindedness, as we now historically can see. So from 1975 to 2009, Steve Sisson worked for Kodak, kept on telling them it's time to pivot into film. Even up until 2004, you could see ads from Kodak saying film is back, digital is dead. And of course, Kodak's moment is that it's our history. So the message there is that you have great ideas in your business. They may not look like the right fit given the current business model, but they may be the thing that actually helps you to grow your business or even survive as a business, right? And it's not about doom and gloom. Innovation is about positive change, but it should be encouraged in such a way that those great ideas do get the opportunity to surface. As I mentioned, level 1 is about looking at your current workloads, optimizing them, reducing your carbon emissions, and reducing your cost. We have these off-the-shelf solutions and guidance that we can offer around these 8 themes. It's not an exhaustive list, right? You may have your themes that you're looking at, but these are some of the common themes that we see within our customer base that are really top of mind and fairly easy to start addressing. Behind all of these is a technology stack as a solution. But the one thing that I want to just reiterate, and with any cloud provider that you work, do not fall in love with the solution. Fall in love with the problem. Find a business solution for that problem, and then find the technology stack that's going to enable you to address it and scale it. Technology is not the solution to all of your business problems. In fact, it can facilitate chaos in your business if you introduce it at the wrong time or with the wrong strategy. And so it's important to look at where is the opportunity in your business to embed technology as an enabler and then facilitate ideation as part of your culture of innovation that you have. Which brings me to level 3, which is once you've given all these great tools to your employees, how do they innovate? Where is it that they have to go to be able to socialize great ideas with management? What is the level of depth that you're willing to entertain when ideas are discussed in your business? Whether it's around sustainability, whether it's around new revenue models, a dramatic shift in the business itself. These are all very important elements in the business to address, because in the absence of which, frustrated employees tend to leave and join the competition, which is the worst case scenario. So you want to create an environment where they can grow to become the best version of themselves. I'm at Amazon because I feel it's an organization that enables me to be the best version of myself, right? I didn't think I would ever get into Amazon. I met someone 16 years ago on a plane that told me about Amazon. I had no idea what cloud computing was. I was a manufacturer of chicken incubators. The cloud to me was, literally sitting on a plane, you see clouds outside. And then she said to me, look, maybe one day you should think about joining Amazon because you seem to have the right fit for this organization. And then 16 years went by, and a friend of mine said, Amazon's hiring, you should probably think about joining them. I said, I'm not academically strong. I don't have all these hardcore credentials. I don't have a PhD in X, Y, and Z. But it was that leadership principles that the organization has, those 16 leadership principles, that gave me the courage to say, well, if I feel like I've exemplified those, then I should probably give it a fair chance, if only to be told no. And so that's the environment you want to create, where there's an aspirational reason for joining your company, a big vision that inspires people who, like myself, did not think that they were good enough to join your business, yet had the courage to still apply, and now have the opportunity to talk about the business and its principles and how it inspires them and can inspire you and your organization. In order for us to create that inspiring environment, ideas need to be able to be surfaced, and you need to find ways and means where they can be implemented as well. And therein lies the challenge. So how do you allow rapid experimenting in your business? How do you receive funding, if any? I had a customer last year. We did this culture of innovation presentation to them, talking about level 3, and they're a banking customer. They're called Standard Bank, one of the largest banks in Africa. And we did the presentation, and one of their employees said, I'm keen to scale this across the organization. So they have 64,000 employees. And I said, look, that's very, very ambitious, and I think that's a goal to work towards. So let's think big around it. But how can we start small? Where are the early adopters in your organization? And so we formed a 2-pizza team, so 8 to 10 people with himself as a single-threaded leader, and started building out this narrative in the organization around Amazon's culture of innovation and how it can benefit them in their business. Long story short, within a year, we sought to educate 400 people around this culture of innovation. where we actually ended up enabling 8,000 employees. Completely viral. There was no top-down mandate to do it. It was a bottom-up initiative where colleagues would talk to one another and say, by the way, have you heard of this thing called working backwards from Amazon? There's a module on our intranet where we can learn about it. Highly recommend you do it. And so it became an organic process. And for this year, we now have a goal to finish educating the entire organization. So we've done 8,000 staff, and now the aim is to do the balance, so up to 64,000 by the end of next year. That's what you want in your organization. It shouldn't have to be a top-down mandated initiative. It should be something that your staff are willing to promote, to go that extra mile, to be customer-obsessed, and to think big for the organization to help deliver results. Which brings me to level 4. I'm always hoping, with every engagement, that there is a potential for me to be speaking to a customer that is going to change their industry and the way the world works. It doesn't happen every time. The aspiration is there, but perhaps the ability isn't there or the urgency isn't there. But this is where the magic happens. Level 4 is where you get to change the way the world thinks and operates. You get to be that change agent. And it requires tremendous guts to do it. It's not easy. I mentioned earlier, Jeff Bezos said that, invention and failure are inseparable twins. You need to be willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time in your own organization in order to champion the right thing. It is so easy to buckle under pressure to say, I just want to comply with being accepted in my workplace, to be liked. But that doesn't lead to change, unfortunately. So it takes a special kind of character that's willing to do that. But you should know that within each of us sitting here, at these 80 tables that we have, in this room right now, there is $1 billion idea, literally, that can change the world. If we're sitting at an innovation conference with some of the brightest minds in Europe and from other parts of the world, this should be the place where that idea gets surfaced. So that, to me, is the inspiration that brought me here today, to have these conversations, to engage, to see if we can start a small discussion that lights a spark that can light a fire of change, right? In whatever industry you're in. Regardless of the industry, it's about the change that you can affect and then inspire others to follow in that trailblazing fashion. I just want to summarize by highlighting these 5 pillars, really. And this is more my take on it. You need to take a steer from your organization that you feel is right. I like to lead with mindset and culture. Right? Before we start talking about strategy and the 90-day sprint and Lean Six Sigma and all the other crazy tools that we're going to use, which are all important, what is the think big that we're chasing? Truly, what is the think big? And to ask yourself, if I had to think bigger and I was guaranteed it would not fail, what would I seek to do in my business, in my career, in my tenure on planet Earth? What is the legacy that you want to leave behind? Then find out what is the mindset that will be required to achieve that outcome. Because it won't be easy, that's for sure. So there needs to be a mindset of discipline and commitment to continue working long hours, whatever it takes, in order to deliver that outcome. In order to delay gratification to then have an incredible result from that consistency that you show. That takes a certain culture as well, especially in an organization where we're all different. We may not have the same levels of ambition. We may not have the same levels of drive or commitment. It needs to be that team that you create that is truly aligned on what it's going to take and is willing to do whatever it takes to deliver that outcome. That's a cultural discussion, and hopefully that permeates across your organization eventually. There's the Pareto principle where there's an 80-20 split in most things in life. And it's important to find who are those 20% in your organization that are going to help you change and grow into the next version of your sustainable and profitable business. The next set is to look at enabling those people, because once you give someone a mandate and you don't enable them, you create frustration, and that leads to redundancy. That leads to team members leaving. It leads to a very, very, very toxic work environment. It's that, how do you feel about Monday morning on Sunday evening discussion? if you're ready to rock and roll, you are excited to start the week, you cannot wait to start making your first call or your first meeting, that is the right kind of organization you've created. But if you yourself are sitting here today thinking, Sunday can't come around quickly, or Friday, that needs to change as well, especially if you're a leader. Thirdly is looking at data, right? So you can't manage anything if you don't measure it, revenue, carbon, or otherwise. So create a mechanism in your organization where you become data-driven. And Amazon, for instance, is metrics obsessed. We have this thing called weasel words, where you don't say, I have a great idea, it's going to make us a lot of money. It's like the idea is worth total addressable market, $1.2 billion based on ABC research. The geo we'll be targeting first is Namer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you become very granular. That needs to be the same in your organization as well, because then you give folks the necessary detail to make decisions around, in the absence of which it's hearsay, which is a terrible baseline for decision making. The fourth one is the hardest one. Because at some point, once we've had all the think big, culture of innovation sessions, we've done the working backwards methodology, we've helped you to write great press releases for ideas of what we need to start together, you then need to choose a project. You need to have the guts then to put your name and your career and your persona to a project to say, I'm going to make this a successful endeavor. My personal preference is to choose the highest visibility, highest risk projects in your business. Get involved where others have failed and be successful. It's hard, but that's where the biggest results are. If you can succeed at something that others have failed at, and you can do it at a high visibility within your organization, performance, image, exposure, you're in a very good place, and your teams will be funded, and you can start cascading your team's mantra across the organization. Because the next step is to scale. So once you've achieved success on a small scale, an impressive scale, but a small scale, you then need to ask yourself, let's think big now. How do we cascade this across the organization? How big can this truly be? I want to end off with a quick story of when I visited Cape Town a few weeks ago. It was a work trip. Amazon, a few months ago, opened up the first digital skills center outside the US in Cape Town, my hometown. And I wanted to go and see what the atmosphere was like, what it's actually about. Beyond the press release, what does it actually look like on the ground? And it was a very humbling and inspiring moment. I wasn't wearing any Amazon livery. I was just wearing normal clothes, jeans and a t-shirt. And a lady came up to me and said, are you here to learn about the cloud as well? I said, yes, I am. And she was talking to me about where she's from. I used to be a police officer in South Africa, and we do a lot of work in the townships because that's where the main source of the crime is. And she said to me, I come from one of these townships, and I've been sent today by my community to learn about this initiative and see how we can bring it into our community. And I thought, okay, that's impressive. It's very noble of you. And then her next question, which completely threw me off, was when she asked about, at what stage, when we learn about the cloud, are we going to learn about protecting the environment? For context, this is someone living on less than $1 a day. They have no reason to think long term, not even tomorrow. Yet, given their state that they're in, they're still thinking about their impact on the environment. And when I said to her, you're talking about sustainability, she didn't understand what the word meant. So she'd never heard of it, but when I explained it to her, she was like, yeah, of course. Why is that a separate concept? That should be part of what we do. We're part of society, we're part of the world. It's a concept called Ubuntu. I am because we are. And the penny dropped in my head to realize that as business leaders, especially in the very, very fortunate position that we're in, no one here, to the best of my knowledge, is currently on $1 a day. There's no way that you would have gotten here in less than that. We need to think long-term on behalf of her, because she doesn't have the luxury to do that, but we do. And so that lady is my why in my head when I go to work. She reminds me of the fact that we have a profound opportunity to affect change globally, regardless of your position that you have in your business. Whether you're in the C-suite or you're an intern, you have the opportunity to shift change in your business. By doing that, you shift society, and eventually you start saving the planet through sustainable business practices. We can still be profitable as businesses and be sustainable. The challenge is real, but the opportunity on the table is to start learning from one another here today and start applying those business practices the moment that we're back in the office tomorrow or the next day after that. Thank you.